Luffy in Gear 6, standing on top of a 100-meter dragon, flying over Elbaf. That dragon is Loki, Prince of the Giants, transformed by his devil fruit into the Nidhogg, the most feared beast in Norse mythology. Together, they face Akainu and Aokiji, who are tearing all of Elbaf apart with magma and ice, hunting a secret buried under the sacred tree since the Void Century. Luffy cracking the ground with black Haki punches, Loki melting entire ice ages with the Nidhogg's fire. When the Admirals realize they can't win alone, they leave 20 years of hatred behind and fuse together. Magma and ice united in a single armor, and even that is not enough. By the end of this video, Luffy will know exactly where the One Piece is, and so will you. Let's begin. Luffy was standing on top of Loki in dragon form, flying over the sea of Elbaf, 100 meters long, scales gray as volcanic rock, eyes and wings that blocked out the sun. Luffy was in Gear 6, his entire body covered in black Haki, standing on the dragon's head with his arms crossed. Below, Elbaf was split in two, the north frozen solid and the east engulfed in flames. Beneath the great sacred tree was a chamber sealed since the Void Century, holding the location of the last Road Poneglyph and the true name of the ancient kingdom. Joy Boy had carved it in stone with his own hands 800 years ago. Vegapunk had discovered it before he was killed and left a hidden clue in his final transmission that only Robin was able to decipher. Robin was inside, deciphering everything, and two people had come to stop her. Aokiji had frozen the northern coast, arriving as Blackbeard's agent to steal the information. Akainu had blasted the eastern coast with magma, arriving from the world government with orders to destroy everything. Two people who had hated each other since Punk Hazard, where they fought for 10 straight days and permanently changed the climate of an entire island. But this time, both of them were targeting the same tree. Loki roared, and the roar shook the air and shattered the clouds around them. The Marines surrounding the tree looked up and saw that enormous shadow blocking out the sky. Luffy crouched on Loki's head, and the black Haki intensified so much that the air distorted around his body. He looked down and saw Akainu to the east and Aokiji to the north. He jumped. He threw himself into free fall from 200 meters, stretched one arm back, inflated it, and coated it in black. Akainu saw him coming and raised both magma arms to block. The black Gomu Gomu no Kongon connected from above and sank the ground 30 meters. Akainu stayed on his feet, but his arms were trembling and blood was seeping from his hands beneath the lava. The shockwave sent every marine within 500 meters flying. At the same time, Loki in dragon form dove toward Aokiji and unleashed a green flame blast charged with the Nidhogg's energy. Aokiji's ice melted on contact, the Admiral who could freeze entire oceans watching as everything turned to water. It was the first time anyone had ever melted a complete ice age with a single attack. Aokiji formed an ice saber in the air and drove it into the dragon's side. Loki roared in pain but did not stop. He landed on top of Aokiji and destroyed half a kilometer of glacier on impact. He shifted into Nidhogg humanoid form, 100 meters tall, green runes blazing, and ripped the ice saber from his side like it was a splinter. The wound sealed itself as he changed forms. The Nidhogg's bark-like skin was something else entirely. 2 against 2, an emperor coated in black and a 100-meter giant glowing with green runes. All four stared each other down for 1 second before everything exploded. The Battle of Elbaf had begun, and nothing on that island was going to stay the same. The first few minutes were total chaos. 4 people with absurd levels of power fighting in the same place. The terrain didn't last. Every hit changed the landscape of the island. Luffy threw a black Gomu Gomu no Gatling at Akainu, a barrage of fists coated in Haki. Each punch sounded like a cannonball on impact. Akainu blocked with magma arms, but each hit pushed him back a step. No one had pushed him like that since Marineford, and it showed on his face. Akainu counterattacked with a Dai Funka, a lava fist aimed straight at Luffy's face. Luffy moved his head, dodged by centimeters, and drove a black Gomu Gomu no bullet into his ribs. Akainu doubled over, and lava splattered off his body. He reformed 5 meters up and launched a Ryusei Kazan, dozens of lava fists raining down from the sky. Luffy inflated with a black Gomu Gomu no Fusen, and the meteors bounced off him without doing a thing. He deflated and redirected them with a Gomu Gomu no Hanabi, lava fireworks scattering in every direction. On the other side, Aokiji unleashed a full ice age against Loki, and the ice crept up his legs to his waist. Loki flexed. The green runes blazed and the ice shattered like glass. He threw a punch that Aokiji barely dodged, but the wind from the blow ripped off half of Aokiji's ice body. Aokiji reconstructed himself while flying backward, with an expression no one had ever seen on him during the fight. Luffy drove his hands into the earth, and the ground erupted into black rock spikes that cut off Akainu's retreat. He cornered him between the rocks and drove a black Gomu Gomu no jet pistol directly into his face. face. Akainu crashed through a rock spike and shattered it with his body, but when he stood back up, a piece of his magma shoulder was missing. Meanwhile, the Marines had sent reinforcements, 3 warships with Vice Admirals trying to reach the tree from the flanks. Zoro was waiting for them, standing between the Marines and the tree with all 3 katanas drawn. Enma pulsed violet, drinking in the Haki from the air like a sponge. Zoro unleashed his Conqueror's Haki, and 200 Marines dropped unconscious at once. Zoro says, "Nobody gets through." He didn't move from his spot. Sanji handled the eastern flank with Ifrit Jambe active, each kick sending 3 or 4 men flying. He moved so fast the Marines only saw a white blur before getting launched. A Vice Admiral threw a punch at Sanji, and Sanji dodged with observation Haki, then answered with a Diable Mouton shot that sent him into the water. The guy didn't even understand what happened before he was underwater. Jinbei defended the base of the tree with Fishman Karate, building walls of water that stopped everything. Yamato had come running from the other side of the island and took up position beside Jinbei. Together, they built a wall nothing was going to cross. Marines who tried it got launched backward. Below, Robin kept deciphering while Frankie and Brooke guarded the entrance. Frankie says, "How much longer do you need?" Robin didn't look up and replied, "As long as it takes." The fight had been going on for an hour and a half, and Luffy and Loki were dominating. Akainu was no longer launching attacks as cleanly as at the start. The lava was coming out irregular. Aokiji was taking longer to reconstruct himself after each hit. Luffy drove his feet into the ground and raised walls of black Haki-coated rock around Akainu. He boxed him in and hit him with a black Gomu Gomu no bazooka between the walls. No room to dodge. Akainu coughed up blood. Aokiji tried to freeze the air around Luffy with an ice time capsule. Luffy drove his hands into the ground and raised a rock wall that blocked the cold wave. He returned the favor with a black Gomu Gomu no pistol that punched straight through Aokiji's ice torso. Zoro stepped between the two of them and said, "Leave him to me. You focus on the lava guy." Enma stopped resisting, and Zoro poured every bit of Haki he had into it. Mihawk had taught him that there existed a cut that could split the very will of things. He threw a slash that split Aokiji in 2, and the ice did not come back together. Aokiji dropped to his knees and took 30 seconds to reconstruct. At this level of fighting, that was an eternity. Sanji came in from the other side and landed a boof burst directly on Akainu's jaw. The kick was so clean, it spun his head around. Akainu went flying, and for a brief moment, he stopped being magma. He bled. Sanji's shoes had melted from fighting so close to the lava. He was barefoot on molten rock. But the Germa exoskeleton was repairing the damage at the same rate he was taking it, the legacy of Vinsmoke Judge running through his blood. Akainu wiped the blood from his mouth and looked at Sanji with a fury that went beyond the fight. The Admirals were losing, and they knew it. No one had pushed them like this since Marineford. Luffy and Loki were fighting as though they had trained together their whole lives. One attacked, and the other covered. Akainu and Aokiji looked at each other. 20 years of hatred between them, but they both understood the same thing. If they didn't fight together, they were going to die. The same two who almost killed each other at Punk Hazard now had to trust each other to survive. Akainu extended his right arm, and Aokiji extended his left. Magma and ice met, the same fusion from Punk Hazard, but controlled this time. Their Haki forged a frozen lava armor around both of them, turning them into something beyond any category. The shockwave sent everyone within 5 kilometers flying. Only Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, and Yamato remained standing. Luffy and Loki stood their ground. The black Haki of Gear 6 and the green runes of the Nidhogg pulsed at the same rhythm. The two energies moved the same way, rising and falling together like a single heartbeat. The breath of the world from the giants and the Haki of Gear 6 came from the same place, the same force that existed before the Devil Fruits, before the world government, before the Void Century. Loki drove his fists into the ground, and the green energy merged with Luffy's black Haki, spreading across the entire area. Black and green washed over Elbaf like a wave. They looked at each other. Neither said a word. There was nothing to say. The fused Admirals stood up. The frozen lava armor covered them completely and distorted the air on both sides. The Haki they released was so heavy that the ground sank where they stepped, and nearby trees cracked and split on their own. The armor moved as if it were alive, red lava and blue ice rotating around each other without mixing. Luffy tightened his fists, and the black Haki intensified across his entire body. Loki roared, and the green runes blazed at full power. All four stared each other down for for 1 second and then charged at the same time. The fused Admirals fired a frozen lava projectile directly at the great tree. Loki stepped into the middle and spread his arms wide. He took the impact head-on, and the Nidhogg armor cracked all at once. The fire and ice poured through the fissures and burned and froze his skin at the same time. He screamed, and the sound was heard on every nearby island, but he did not move a single centimeter. The tree behind him received nothing. Blood streamed down his arms, and the green runes flickered. His energy was draining. Loki looked at Luffy and said, "Now, Straw Hut?" Luffy ran past Loki and drove his feet into the ground. The terrain warped, lifting columns and ramps of black rock. He turned the battlefield into his arena, every stone, every crack coated in black Haki. The fused Admirals charged toward him. The armor left a trail where the ground melted and froze at the same time. They moved like a single person. Akainu's body up front, Aokiji controlling the flanks. Luffy met them with a black Gomu Gomu no Kong gun that connected against the armor and pushed them back 10 meters. It was the first time anything had moved them since the fusion. Akainu threw a Megu fused with Aokiji's ice, a punch that burned and froze at the same time. The attack traveled through the air, distorting everything around it. Whatever it touched exploded and froze simultaneously. Luffy dodged by a hair, and the blow obliterated an entire mountain behind him. He counterattacked with a black Gomu Gomu no rifle that cracked the armor for the first time. Loki charged from behind and drove a Nidhogg punch into their back with the green runes blazing at full power. The armor cracked on the other side. The Admirals released a combined wave of heat and cold that pushed Loki back. A frozen lava arm grazed Luffy and ripped a chunk of rock from his shoulder. He hit them with a black Gomu Gomu no stamp to the knee, and the armor groaned. The Admirals turned to face Loki, who was charging again. That was their mistake. Luffy was already above them. He had used a rock ramp to catapult himself into the air. Black Gomu Gomu no Gatling from above, each punch falling like a hammer on the armor. The cracks grew wider, and chunks of frozen lava began to fly off. Akainu roared and unleashed all his magma at once, a blast of heat that pushed Luffy back. The heat was so intense it melted the rock for 30 meters in every direction. Luffy stretched his arms, hooked onto a rock column, and catapulted himself back even faster. He spun in the air with his entire body coated in Haki. Black Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, both fists together against the fusion's chest. The armor split clean down the middle. Aokiji separated and fell to one side. He tried to reconstruct himself, but his legs wouldn't respond. The accumulated damage of the entire fight was catching up with him. He could no longer hold his ice form. Akainu was alone, no fusion. He gathered everything he had left into one arm. Lava concentrated to its maximum. The air turned orange from the heat. He threw the punch. All or nothing. Luffy dug in his feet. The ground rose around his arm, forming a layer of rock, and on top of that, he poured his black Haki. Black Gomu Gomu, no Red Hawk. The fist caught fire in black flames, rubber, rock, and Haki burning in a single strike. The same attack he had used at Fishman Island at Dressrosa in every moment that mattered, but now with the full power of Gear 6 behind it. The two fists collided, lava against black fire. The ground sank and the air burst apart between them. Luffy's fist pushed through, passed over the lava, and connected directly with Akainu's chest, the man who killed Ace. The shockwave was visible from the sea. Akainu was sent flying. He stopped being magma and returned to being human. He fell 3 kilometers away, bounced off the ground twice, and landed face up. Smoke rose from his chest where the fist had connected. He did not get up. Aokiji was still sitting on the ground. He looked at Luffy and did not attack. Those blue eyes that had seen too many wars had no desire for one more. Aokiji says, "Garp was right about you, nothing else." Gear 6 switched off and the black faded from Luffy's body like smoke, but they had won. Robin came out of the chamber with tears in her eyes, not from sadness. She had found the name of the ancient kingdom, the location of the last Road Poneglyph, and a message from Joy Boy, carved in rough, hurried handwriting. Joy Boy had written it in a rush, knowing he was running out of time 800 years ago. Robin read it quietly to Luffy, and the others simply watched his face change. Luffy says, "I know where it is. I know where the One Piece is." Elbaf was only the beginning. What comes next is the final race to Laugh Tale. If you want to see that chapter, subscribe and leave a comment about what other alternate stories you'd like to see. See you in the next chapter.